Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Dogco Secrets podcast. My name is Michelle Kline. I am your host. I am also the founder of Dogco Launch, where pet care companies come to grow and scale. In today's episode, I want to talk about a few ways that top performers organize their time. So let's get into it. All right, so I did a podcast recently where I talked about how important time is as a resource to your business. So I did an episode on 5 beliefs that have changed for me in the last 5 years. And one of the biggest beliefs is that time is a more valuable resource to my business than cash flow. Cash flow is important for sure, but my time is the input that has the outcome of cash flow. So if I'm looking at the biggest leveraged way to grow my business, to improve my business, it is where my time goes as the business owner. But time can be really hard to use well, and it can be very hard to know how to leverage time in a way that grows your business, that's going to have the outcome and the impact that you're looking for. It's something I think about a lot. It's something I've been thinking about a lot over the last month specifically, as I have been kind of reshaping where my time goes and how I evaluate the effectiveness of my time. So whenever I personally go into a season where I'm restructuring something or trying to go, into build a new skill or head in a new direction, and this really has been very top of mind and relevant for me recently, I like to look at how are other successful people approaching whatever it is I'm trying to do. Like, how can I learn from what they have set up for themselves to the extent I have visibility? If you're ready to take your pet care business to the next level, then I want you in the room at the Dogco Business Summit, October 2nd through the 4th in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. We have brought together the very best speakers we could possibly find, and we are getting the best companies in the room to help give you the path to grow and scale your pet care business. Go to dogcosummit.com to learn more. And I'm in a really cool spot in our industry where I get visibility into how a lot of business owners operate. So I've consolidated the top habits and practices I see when it comes to time management from business owners that I would consider to be high performers and like top operators in their space. And this is kind of pulling from not just our industry, but also, colleagues that I have, people in the digital education space, thought leaders that I follow and what they've shared, kind of all pooled together into my assessment and takeaways. So I figured I'd share them with you. Why not? All right. So the first thing that I see top performers do when it comes to their time is that they have a form of structure to it. And a lot of this kind of comes down to this idea of they're very intentional. They're intentional with where their time goes, and they're intentional with what they say yes to. But kind of around all of that, there's some form of structure. That might be time blocking, where they've gotten really clear about what time is intended to do for them in the window of time that it is. That might be a rule set around their calendar where it's like, I only take meetings on Mondays and Tuesdays, or I never take more than 4 calls a day. Neither of those are my rules right now. They're rules I've considered, but they have some form of structure to how their time is spent, whether that's a rule set or a system that they have pushed time into. I am still defining what that system should be for me, because there are a lot of different ways you can organize your time. I also think it depends pretty heavily on like what your role to the business is, depending on the season that it's in. So for example, last year, I was the only coach in Dogco. So a lot of my time was in teaching and delivery. This year, there are 4 Dogco coaches, excluding me. There are 5 Dogco coaches total. So my time doesn't go into it as much as it did last year because there are people sharing that load with me now. And I think this is why this is so top of mind for me, because I've shared pretty openly on the podcast. I think one of the biggest learning lessons for me this year is I changed my business model pretty heavily in January. I didn't change my identity or my role relative to the business. And now I feel like I'm playing some catch up, really stepping into the leader of my own business. And I promised authenticity here. So there it is. That feels like the biggest arc for me this year and kind of the biggest learning lesson in a good way. That is why this is so top of mind, because I think with that role shift and that identity shift for my business, I also needed and need to make a time shift relative to my business. So I don't know what that rule set will be for me. I do time block. I like it. I think the downside with time blocking, and if you're not familiar with that, it's just where like literally you go into your calendar and you block. This is the time I'm going to use for marketing. This is the time I'm going to use for operations. And you get really specific about what you will do with your time. I like time blocking a lot. I find it to be really helpful. I find that I fall into the bad side of time blocking where I feel the need to fill every single block. And I'm realizing, I think part of the identity rule shift I need to make is like time to be creative and time to work on projects that I don't necessarily know how long they're going to take. So I just need margin. So I'm trying to figure out how to utilize that system in a way that doesn't lead to like over committing or over stacking my calendar. And I'm sure I'll find a middle ground. I also like the idea of a rule set where maybe Mondays are days I do content, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays are days I teach, and Fridays are days I do like data and strategy for my own company. I don't know. I haven't really gotten to what the ideal system would be for me, but I know I need structure and I know I need a system for my time. And that is something I've seen replicated across every high performer that I work with, is that there is some structure to the way that they spend time and to what they say yes to and how they prioritize it. All right. The second quality that I see in how top performers manage their time is that they are proactive versus reactive. We all have seasons in our business that are going to be more reactive from a time-based standpoint, where it's like we just have to deal with the noise and the volume coming in. We have to deal with the fires that come up. So I don't want to paint this picture as 100% all or nothing, but top performers I see, they approach time with a deeply proactive stance, knowing that the reality of business is that their attention may have to get pulled into something else, but there's a plan for where their time is going. And the plan is not, I'll react to the day. And over time, as things come up and interrupt their workflow, they build systems to address whatever that noise was. So over time, they are able to get more and more proactive with what their time looks like. That is something that I see consistently across people who operate well. They're very protective over blocks of their time and very proactive about what they're going to be used for. I don't know if that one needs to be fleshed out much more. Other than I will say in pet care, I think this is one of the more difficult things to master because there is so much noise in this business model. It's incredibly logistically complex. There are a lot of variables you have to account for. It just is a noisy business model. And even with admin, managers, leaders on your team, it takes a lot of coaching and a lot of systems for them to be able to truly operate independently without you. So I would just say, though, I've seen it done. And the people that I say break that cycle are the people who take a lot of agency around it and know that it's completely unsustainable to grow the business long term as the owner and to grow it well when you're always just reacting to what's going on in the field during the day, to what clients need. That will undercut the growth, that will undercut your ability to lead as the owner over and over and over again until it's addressed. And the high performers I work with take that really seriously. All right. And then the third thing that I see top performers do when it comes to their time is they play defense on their schedule. And this is the biggest area of growth for me. They're very clear with what's a yes and what's a no. They're very clear at identifying what actually needs to happen that they need to do. And they prioritize that over everything else. And they say no. And they follow the principle. It is either a clear yes or it's a no. And again, this is something I'm working really hard to get better at because I do believe it's fundamental to any business being able to grow. We've talked about the 80-20 principle a lot on this podcast. I talk about it a lot in Dogco. It's this idea, if you can't tell, if you're watching this on YouTube, You will see I have probably 100 something books behind me on my shelf. I am a big reader. There's a book called the 80/20 Principle where basically there's a disproportionate relationship between effort and output. And so there are going to be things that you do that give you a much higher return for the cost that they take to create or to do. And so over time, we should be better at identifying what are those high return activities and cutting out our focus on low return activities. And I've noticed that high performers apply that principle to their time specifically, where, my time should go to these high return areas. And I make sure that my time is adjusted for that rather than trying to focus on high return areas in the margin and letting the noise eat up the rest of their time. All right. I think those were the highlights. I hope this was helpful, and I'll catch you on the next one.